Awesome. Okay. So as I mentioned, that the second stage of building an outbound kind of sales machine is to do your research. And I showed a variation of this slide before, which is these different lead sourcing playbooks. And I use the word playbook. It's a strategy. It's a different strategy to find different people, or sometimes the same people, depending on the trigger. Now, the first that you're probably familiar with is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, even the free version of LinkedIn, has a really simple search, but it can be quite powerful. So you can search for people by their geography, by their job titles. If you are investing in outbound as a strategy, I highly recommend signing up to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. A little trick that LinkedIn won't like me to share with you is if you sign up to Sales Navigator for 1 month and then cancel, you'll get 2 months at half price, just as part of to keep you in there. So just a little tip there. But there are additional tools on top of that you can use which go against LinkedIn's terms of service. So I'm not saying you should do this, but there's tools available that you can use called Get Prospect, Seamless.ai. And what they do is they actually, as you can see on the screenshot, you've got the connect button, but then there's also find. And what that does is that will hit that, you click find, and it will send it to Seamless.ai in this example. And then Seamless.ai will look for their email address, and it will look for their professional email address as well. So LinkedIn search is probably the best place to start when you're just getting started with prospecting. The next playbook is the web scrape. So this is using a scraping tool to scrape out that structured data. The tool that I've used very well is it's called Grepsa. And again, it may go against the terms of service if you're scraping. But one example was for a customer, they wanted to find a list of 0 certified accountants. So we managed to find a list of 0 certified accountants, and we scraped all that information into a spreadsheet. And then we went and found the email addresses using enrichment tools like Seamless.ai. So think about if your target audience or the people that you want to reach out to are in directories somewhere, then that is another place that you can source these leads. The event hijack, which is a little bit irrelevant at the moment, but there are some industries where they hugely rely on events. I used to work in the data center industry, and there was Data Center World at the Excel in London. It was a huge event. But oftentimes, if you're exhibiting, they often give you a list of attendees. And one of the things that I think is great about targeting people that are going to events is, one, you have a reason to speak to them because you're also going to the event. And then if a company is exhibiting or attending an event, they're typically open to meeting new vendors, or they're open to learn, because why would they be there in the first place? So it's a good time to initiate a conversation with these sorts of companies. And of course, you can manually research this data. As you can see, I can't remember what event this was for in the screenshot, or you can use a scraper on top of this to pull that information out. We had one client before, they did a genius thing with their strategy with events. So they used to give us a list of conferences that were happening all around America, and we would then do the research for them, give them the list. They would reach out and they'd say, hey Nick, heading over to San Francisco for Dreamforce. Would you like to grab a coffee? Would you like to grab a beer? And only when they hit a certain amount of yeses did they book the tickets to go and fly to San Francisco if they weren't based there. They never ended up going to the event either. They just booked meetings around the event. And that's potentially a strategy that you could do once events are up and running. And if you rely on, and if your audience is going to be attending events, and if you need to be face-to-face with people. Another thing that you can do with events, so this is more of a marketing tactic, but most events encourage attendees to use hashtags when sharing content from the event, when they're actually at the event, or maybe even checking into the event using a hashtag. I went to Inbound in Boston a few years ago, and they were telling everybody to get the hashtag Inbound 16 hashtag trending. But you can use a tool like Awario to monitor this, so you don't have to be at the conference. I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, and we just had the Next Web Summit, which is all online this year. But people were talking about Web Summit. So if you know that people are at the event, again, it's another excuse to start the conversation with them. And if, again, this is really pre-COVID. So the social expansion, so this is probably one of my favorite playbooks that I really like. And what the idea is that you identify thought leaders or influencers in your target audience and the industry, and then you use a tool called Phantom Buster to scrape the contacts, or scrape the people who have engaged with these influencers. So some of you may be familiar with Patrick Campbell. He runs Profitwell. And if I was Paddle, Chargebee, Recurly, people, they're software companies that serve the same audience, I might want to contact people that engage with Patrick's post. So you can see in the screenshot, he had 423 comments and 261, it's a bit small from here, 200 odd likes on here. So you could actually extract that information, clean it up, and you might be left with a list of, let's say, 350 people. And you could use that same approach that I used with Beck Holland that I shared before, where I sent 60 messages and got 30 replies in 12 meetings. And the idea is just to fish where the fish are. So it might not be LinkedIn, could be Quora, could be Slack, could be Facebook groups, but look to see where people who are influential in your target audience's market and engage with people based on what other people are doing. We've got the competitor. So I think this is a really good one as well. So you can find your competitors' social channels and or groups and identify potentially interested contacts. So in this one, this is Shogun. I think they're a Shopify development company. So the people, and they produce content all about developing for Shopify. So if you also had a Shopify agency or you had an outsourced Shopify development company, you know that all the people in here they're not going to be all interested in your product or solution, but it's like a captured market of people rather than just going after all marketing managers. There might be some marketing managers in here that specialize in Shopify. And again, you could use the tool Phantom Buster, which I've spelled wrong on the slide, to pull data from these channels or from groups and then enrich that data with LinkedIn and Hunter. And like I said, I train the whole of the Task Drive to be able to run these sort of campaigns for people. This one is really good. So you may be familiar with Product Hunt. So what you can do here is look for a competing or complementary product to yours and identify those that are likely to be interested in your product. And you could use, there's another platform like Phantom Buster called TextAU to collect the information and enrich the data via LinkedIn and Seamless. I helped an email copywriter friend out. And basically, we went and looked at Mailshake is a cold email tool, Lemlist is a cold email tool, Woodpecker is, Reply.io, the list goes on, there's around 60 of them. We went and looked at all of the Product Hunt launches and saw people that upvoted any of these cold email platforms. And then we scraped all that information, put it in a list, cleaned that list out, and we sent an email to these people saying, I know that you use cold email, or I know that cold email is part of your strategy. Would you send me your first email and I'll review your campaign and suggest any improvements. We literally stopped sending after we sent about 150 emails, we stopped because it was so successful. But rather than my friend who was the email copywriter, rather than him just going on LinkedIn and looking at all sales development reps, we looked to find the people that we already knew were using a tool to facilitate what it is that he could help with. So that's just an example. And I actually received an email from a founder the other week saying, I saw that you upvoted product X. We've just released an update to our product, which also helps solve that problem. If you're not using product X yet, would you like to try my product? I thought that was a great message. And he, again, rather than targeting me or by job title and looking for all founders or all marketing managers, you're finding people who are already using the tools and technology. Currently hiring, this is a really good one as well. So companies that are currently hiring and investing in the growth of their business companies that are investing in the growth of their business and revenue, if your product can help them with that, then this is a good time to contact them. You can use LinkedIn to save a search of key job roles, and you can sign up to job alerts on other websites like Indeed. So for example, if you sold an employee onboarding software or a learning management system, I'm thinking HR things here at the moment, when you can see that a company is hiring new people within their company, they may have the need for your solution. If I was running a sales coaching practice full time, I would be going after people who are hiring sales reps because I know that they're bringing new team members in. The sales director is not always going to have as much time to onboard them and train them. So speaking to people who are currently hiring is another great reason to start the conversation. And like I said before about the new role, so when somebody starts a new role, they're more likely to be making a purchasing decision. So use LinkedIn and save searches, all for free. I know this is the Sales Navigator screenshot, but it doesn't need to be. And you can use Seamless to locate that contact information. And to give an example, this is something that I took out of a Slack community that I'm in, where the person here is saying, yes, I've switched to Chili Piper at my last 2 companies. I'll bring that tool wherever I go. Don't expect to negotiate on price. So you can see that when people move roles, they typically introduce new software into the companies they're going into. For example, if I looked at a sales team and they weren't using meeting booking links, it's one of the first things I'm going to recommend to them to invest in. So when someone starts a new role, they are much more likely to be buying or looking for a new product. It may be that they're using your competitor right now, but they start a new role and then they've got the option of bringing in your competitor or bringing you in as well. So the new role is probably where I would start on all of these playbooks. Reverse IP technology is basically when a company visits your website, it looks at the IP address and gives you the idea of which company it's working from. I work from home, so no one's ever going to find me, but if I was working from an office, it would. This is a lot more tricky when it's people working from home. But when people are visiting your website multiple times in a short period, which a lot of these technologies tell you, you can actually automate emails that go out to them. I did this at Task Drive. The subject line was it you, Nick? And then it was like, the email was like, hey, Nick, notice that somebody from StartupSauce was on the website browsing this page. I looked on LinkedIn, I thought it may have been you. Is there anything I can do to help? And the amount of replies I got from that, which I was surprised with, people said, no, it wasn't me, but it may have been Jane. And he CC'd in Jane. So you're using this information to find out who the right person is to speak to. New technology is another playbook. And this is a paid tool called Similar Tech, but it's relatively affordable. What you can do is save an alert for key technology installs. Another option is Datanize. And what happens when this happens, then research the correct persona and find their contact details and use this as the trigger for your outreach. So to give an example, Gorgeous is a live chat AI assistant that helps reduce the amount of human hours that needs to go into supporting people via e-commerce. So they realized that when somebody just starts using the live chat software, they're not big enough, or they don't have a big enough pain for them to invest in Gorgeous, the software. But what they did is whenever somebody started using a live chat software, so they only looked for Shopify stores, and only when people had started using live chat, they started the engagement and interaction with those companies then. So that by the time that those companies were growing, and obviously not all of those companies would grow to need a more robust or AI solution. However, they had educated the market, they'd given them so much help, they helped them grow, so that when they did have the need, Gorgeous were the first people that they spoke to. And they actually, this is how Gorgeous generated their first 1,000 customers, was using this approach. I've got a link to the video of the founder talking about it, if anyone's interested in that. The account playbook, so there's a tool called Owler, that's what's used here. And you can actually upload a list of target accounts, and you'll be notified when things happen within those accounts. So for example, it might be that they've received a new funding, they're opening a new office, they've won an award. Again, all reasons and all good excuses to reach out to an individual and start talking to them. And so then you would use LinkedIn to look at the profiles and obviously locate the decision maker. If it's an award and you're targeting the department of that award, you can use that as your in to start that conversation. Because again, cold email outreach is all about starting conversations, and these are great context and triggers for you to do so. The next one is the intent playbook. So intent data it's still a little bit hard to understand the ROI of intent data because it's a big investment and it's very hard to attribute everything back to this. But what you can, so this is lead sift, and what it does is it identifies prospects talking to your competitors or people that have signaled an intent to buy. So they may have been checking out some G2 crowd reviews or the Magic Quadrants or these industry benchmark reports, and lead sift can collect all of that data. And when you combine that intent data with the personalized research, you're much more likely to start conversations with people. I ran an experiment with LeadSift, and my emails, when I used the intent data from LeadSift, got much higher engagement being reply rates, than people that I was targeting that were in the same persona, but I had no intent data on them at all. But intent data costs quite a lot. It's not commoditized yet, so it is still quite expensive. But if you have a larger deal size and a lot longer sales cycle, intent data can be worthwhile for you. How TaskDrive kind of work with this is LeadSift dumps out 1,000 contacts that have had some sort of engagement, and then we would TaskDrive would then go through and find the email addresses, the LinkedIn profiles of all of these people. This one's pretty genius, the reviewer playbook. So you've got sites like G2, Capterra, GetApp, and they're gold mines for finding prospects' pain points, number one. So this is a good review from Roy. However, if it's a bad review about one of your competitors, it's a perfect time for you to swoop in and say, hey, I saw your review on GetApp or on G2. Notice you weren't too happy about the fact that this CRM didn't integrate with this marketing automation tool. We've actually built an integration which you could use. Would you like to try it out? And again, you're not going to be sending out thousands of emails like that. You're going to send out a very small amount, but it's going to be at the right time. Oftentimes you can. So I did try this one. I copied Roy M, and yeah, he works at Blue Digital. It says it there. Sometimes if it's sometimes you can just get the name and like the company or the industry they work in. I have been able to find it via LinkedIn. And I trained, again, the team at TaskDrive to be able to do that, but it's not always an exact match. But look at people that are reviewers, and even spend time yourself, forget prospecting, spend time on review sites and see what people are saying about your product and also your competitors' products, because that then feeds into the messaging that you put into your website, or maybe even informs the content that you create in the future. A little bit like that example I shared before of people talking about building an employer brand through guest podcasting. We're almost at the end. The Show Me the Money playbook. This is Crunchbase. I think for $400 a year, it's probably the best $400 I've ever spent. You can save a search in Crunchbase, use lots of different filters, and you can set up daily or weekly alerts. So I think in this example, I've got companies who have raised more than $1 million within the last 6 months, I think back then when I took the screenshot. And basically every time, or every week, it would give me a list of 15 companies that had just raised X amount of money. And then I would reach out to them and say, hey, I see that you've just raised a Series A. It looks like you're going to take a sales-led approach to growth. Here's a blog post that we created with people sharing the mistakes to avoid when it comes to building out your sales process after raising a round of funding. And the amount of engagement I got, again, I'm not pitching, I'm helping and providing value, but I'm starting conversations. And we were able to convert a number of those prospects into customers because we did what Gorgeous did, was just seed them with information. We helped them grow and got to the point where they'd put in their sales team, and then they were like, okay, now we need a consistent source of data. And they came and worked with TaskDrive. The clone playbook, this is very specific to TaskDrive, but you could do this with a VA. You might have a specific thing or process yourself that you use to identify whether a prospect is going to be a qualified lead or not. So you can actually just record a video of the part of the process and then just delegate that to a team member like an intern or a VA. It's usually a research task that needs to be carried out by a human and can't be done via scraping or AI yet. One of the things we did for a company, he was a regional banking app development company, so super niche, but we went on the Play Store and the App Store for Apple, and we looked at the reviews that people were leaving about the usability of specific regional banking apps in the US. And then we copied and pasted some of the negative comments and some of the positive comments as well, put that into a spreadsheet for him. Then he used that in his outreach. Again, a human needs to do that because we're looking for the context and we're looking for sarcasm, because that's another thing that AI can't quite work out yet. If you leave a very sarcastic review, it might look negative, but really it's positive. So having any process that you need a human pair of eyes, even that you do yourself, you can record that and then just build out an SOP, a standard operating procedure for that. So sorry for rushing this a little bit. Once you've done your prospecting and your researching, then obviously you want to prepare for your outreach by collating, cleaning, verifying, segmenting, and personalizing your messaging. And then you start the outreach. You do your emails, and whatever sequences that you're doing in your cadences. And I'm going to skip the bonuses. Thank you. I appreciate it's been an hour and a half. So thank you once again for your time. There's the link. It's mark-free-trial on TaskDrive. And I think Ryan alluded to, I work with, so my main agency is Speak on Podcasts, and there's more information on our website there. I also have Ryan, I think I've shared the product onboarders with you previously, haven't I?
Yeah, actually, Helen came and gave a talk.
That's right.
A while back. Yeah, awesome intro,
Yeah.
by the way. Thank you for that. She was excellent. So
No worries. So I've got a few minutes for questions if we have any.